And now turning to our program, please welcome Elizabeth Humish, Vice President of Miller Communications, to introduce today's speaker.
Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. It is my pleasure to introduce today's featured speaker, Rebecca Gries, Executive Director of Milwaukee 7. Rebecca's journey with M7 began in 2018 when she joined as Director of Corporate Attraction and Expansion. Over the past 7 years, she has been a driving force behind countless successful projects, leading more than a dozen corporate expansions or relocations to southeastern Wisconsin. Her work has earned national recognition. In 2022, Consultant Connect selected her as a top 50 economic developer in North America. And in 2024, she was honored in the Milwaukee Business Journal's prestigious 40 Under 40 list. In December 2024, building on her impressive track record, Rebecca was promoted to Executive Director of the Milwaukee 7 Regional Partnership, overseeing the entire organizational strategy. Her rise reflects a planned succession from her predecessor, Jim Paish, who led M7's efforts since its founding, marking a new chapter for the organization. Rebecca holds a bachelor's degree from St. Norbert College and a master's from Loyola University, Chicago. She's passionate about the region's economic resilience and expanding possibilities for businesses across southeastern Wisconsin. Please join me in welcoming a dynamic leader who is helping to shape our region's future. Rebecca?
Wow, thank you so much for that fantastic introduction. Always gives me a little juice to start the presentation. So I am very grateful to present to you all today on some things that we're thinking at the regional level as well as where our organization is moving towards. And so right before I begin on regional competitiveness, I just want to lay the groundwork of who we are. You know, I've met a few of you as you're coming in and you're like, oh, I've never heard of Milwaukee 7, which is not unusual. We usually play behind the scenes and want others to shine ahead of us in the work that we do. So the Milwaukee 7 Regional Partnership is a nonprofit, privately funded organization that's funded by a lot of the large firms in the area. And our work is to represent southeastern Wisconsin. That is 2 million people that make up the residents of the 7-county region that you see here on the screen. And our mission is really to attract and expand businesses, to increase capital investment and drive job growth in the region. And we are successful for that because of the partnerships that we have built across the region, including state partners, county and municipal partners. And it's really this effort together as a unified front that makes us competitive across the United States and around the globe. It's this unified effort that makes us stand out, it makes us unique, and it gives a streamlined effort to these companies who are looking to find a new location to place investment and create jobs, as well as help local companies here expand within the region. Now, this approach and the expertise on our team has led to tremendous success. I'm happy to share that we just closed out our last 5-year campaign. We set goals at the beginning of these campaigns to achieve usually further ahead than what we had accomplished in the last 5 years. And we closed that out this last December, and I'm happy to report we exceeded every single goal. This is the most successful 5-year campaign that we've had in Milwaukee 7's history, and we're thrilled. Through this campaign, we've added over 11,000 jobs to the regional economy, added $5.49 billion of capital expenditures. That's 5 times what we had anticipated, so really thrilled about that. And then created these projects that we had worked within that 5 years, had a regional average wage 18% higher than the average regional wage, so really adding to our economy and growth. And so in total, M7 was founded in 2005 with this vision of having a unified front and a single contact for these companies and the capability to move around the region. And so since our founding, we have closed 139 projects. That is different companies that have expanded in the region or have chosen Milwaukee as the place to invest that is new to them. That has added 32,000 jobs, $2 billion of added payroll from those projects, and $8.4 billion investment. So I just really wanted to set the stage for you all to understand, what level of work we're doing and what have we been up to in the last 20 years. So, the only constant that we know in our community is change. the world is changing quickly, and it seems like change is coming more quickly than ever before. And so as we look into the next 5 years and creating a strategy within those 5 years, we did a SWOT analysis and really dug into research, understanding what are our strengths and where are the opportunities with this region that we need to be our eyes wide open to address that moving forward and continue to be competitive amongst our peer regions, as well as regions across the United States and around the globe. And so I wanted to share 5 thoughts from that research with you all today, and then talk a little bit about our steps towards addressing those outcomes of that study. Starting first with manufacturing pedigree. Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin is still known as a manufacturing powerhouse. We have the entities that are global power players that are headquartered here or have significant operations. Our workforce is known across the country for their craftsmanship and their ability to produce highly advanced products. You know, we're not just putting gadgets together and throwing it in a box and sending it around the world. We are producing some really advanced products that are really pushing industry forward. And so the data shows that. You know, we have the highest concentration of manufacturing employment in the United States, in the state of Wisconsin. And then if we drill down even a little further into our region ourselves, we are ranked 4 among the top 50 metros for manufacturing employment as well. So this is still a place in an industry that we are playing strongly in. And something that we observed and something that drew our attention is the chart you see here up on the screen. Productivity is up in manufacturing, and we're able to produce a lot more with fewer people. So this is still a very vibrant sector for us in manufacturing, but it's shifting. You know, with the Internet of Things, AI, robotics, you know, we are able to produce more with less folks. Another change in our manufacturing pedigree is the investment and where this investment is going. You can see here on the map, this is where investment has chosen to locate from 2021 to 2023. And you can tell from the more deep red states that's more investment heading in that direction. So, you know, over the last couple of centuries, you know, the Midwest really was the hub of manufacturing, and we're starting to see that tilt south through this data. So that's the first thought that we come to. How can we be nimble and adjust to that change as we see it? Number 2 is population. And so I want to just state this quote from the Pew Charitable Trust back in 2021. A shrinking or slow-growing populace can be both a cause and an effect of weakened economic prospects. And I just want to repeat that one more time. A shrinking or slow-growing populace can be both a cause and effect of weakened economic prospects. Population growth and economic health go hand in hand. People want to live and will move to where there's economic opportunity and a chance for them to prosper. So the city of Milwaukee mayor is absolutely correct in the sense of wanting to attract 1 million people and have the city be at 1 million people in the coming years. That is a true indicator of economic health and something that we truly believe in as well. So we want to take a look at population growth. What is it? What do we look like amongst our peer region? What are we competing against here? And, you know, over the last 13 years, our region has grown by 3,800 people. Not bad, you know, we're not shrinking, so at least there's some growth. And we look great compared to Cleveland, a peer metro. But that's where really the story changes. St. Louis is growing, Columbus, Indianapolis, and Kansas City. This is where we stack up. And, you know, people used to say, well, it's the weather. People want to move south. You know, we're competing against warmer climates. But this is clearly busting that hypothesis. There is a shining light in this story, though. I don't want to scare too many people. We are attracting a significant population from the Chicagoland and Illinois area into this region. So that is an opportunity we certainly want to keep track of and take advantage of moving forward. Next is income. So economics use, you know, per capita income as a way to measure economic health. And so we wanted to take a look at our history in this space in the top 50 metros and where we stack up. And since 1973, we've had a pretty consistent stance in the top 20 metros in per capita income. Great statistics. We're happy to be in that space, usually in the mid-teens, but this is also shifting. So in the last few years, we are just barely hitting above the 50% mark here. So a place that we are fairly stable is now we're seeing a stable decline in this space. So, looking at that and what is the cause of that? One indication that is correlated with per capita income is education attainment. We want to take a look at, what was the percentage of population of our residents over the age of 25 that has a bachelor's degree? Again, a direct correlation with, this per capita income. And against the US average, we look pretty great, 36.1%. But again, stepping back and comparing ourselves to our peer regions, what does that look like? And, Columbus, Kansas City, and Indianapolis do have slightly higher percentages in this space. And I already predict a question, Rebecca, there's 3% difference between us and Columbus. Why does that matter? If we were to achieve 39% in bachelor's degree in this category, that would add over 30,000 residents. That's 30,000 more people in our region that would have that degree. Pretty impactful number. Lastly, the fifth thought we had is corporate mix. So Milwaukee has a really strong group of legacy companies here in global operations. It is fueling our economy, and a lot of these companies are choosing to continue to invest here and grow those roots even stronger. And they're dynamic in the global world. So we're thrilled to have them here. And this is a strong group. We actually ranked third for Fortune 1000 companies in our area compared to our peer region. So again, pretty significant there. But, we wanted to look at where are the young companies, the up-and-comers, the scalers in the United States? How many do we have here, these new job creators within the Milwaukee 7 region? And so Heartland Forward actually did a study on this very topic. Where are those job creators and where are they landing? And we took that information and looked at the top 50 metros again to find out where Milwaukee sat. 44 out of 50. So the bottom 20% of this space. So yes, we still have an amazing group of legacy companies, but how are we attracting and how are we gaining those young up-and-coming companies to the area and nurturing them to be successful, to help with that industry mix? So those are the 5 thoughts that came from the research and SWOT analysis. And what do we do next? How can Milwaukee 7 start shifting our momentum to address these changes the best we can? And so we took a look at how we attract new businesses and focus our energies on expanding businesses. And back in 2008, we partnered with the Deloitte to do a study to understand what are our key industries in this region. By understanding these clusters of organizations, we also have an understanding of our assets and what assets are attracting new companies. So this was really a roadmap for us to go after and target companies in these industries moving forward. So this was, again, developed in 2008 and our roadmap up until last year. And to address some of these changes we're going to see, we want to refresh this study. Are we still going after the companies that are growing quickly and finding our assets attractive? And again, this is just an indication of number of wins out of that 139 in each of these categories. So an indication we are on the right track in this targeting mechanism. And these are the companies that fit into some of those categories that had chosen to expand here. So Komatsu, Milwaukee Tool, Pfizer, but again, really fantastic opportunities to invest in our community and fit into those categories well. So by refreshing that study, this is the new industries that we plan to focus going on into 2025. And so I want to there's some new and some old in here, and I want to just take some time to highlight why some of these industries are now in our target space. So again, these are companies that we want more of in here and that we plan to try and bring to and invest in our economy. So starting first with the biotech and manufacturing sector. This had been a group that we talked about as medical tech manufacturing, and now it's biotech and manufacturing. There are some reasons that we're gonna go after this specific industry harder and more targeted moving forward, and there's 3 reasons for that. One, our past growth in this space. So looking at employment, we grew by 37% in the last 10 years in the M7 region in this specific sector. That is compared to the US average of 17%. So tremendous growth. Second, we were designated as a federal biotech hub, which is shining a new light on our region in this space and calling attention to us in a different way than we had experienced in the past. And then lastly is the predicted growth in biotech for our region. We looked at the Bureau of Labor and Statistics and their anticipated population growth or employment growth in this space. And we are anticipated to grow by 21% again in the biotech in the next 10 years, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. That is compared to 12% anticipated national growth. So really an area that we feel bullish on. And just to give you a sense of the companies that exist here in this space and in this region, you can see a few of them on the screen, as well as the high value occupations within this space. Again, that is what we really want to target. You know, again, going back to how manufacturing is changing, these are jobs that are changing with that production. And then technology and electronic manufacturing and energy and component manufacturing as the last 2 categories I want to kind of explain here today. So technology and electronic manufacturing, you can see the examples on this screen. These are the companies who are developing switchboards, research and development in this space, as well as, you know, creating the brains of the machines in the manufacturing process that you're seeing around the world. And so we want to go after more of these companies moving forward because we already know that they find our region attractive, and so we want others in Milwaukee as well. Energy and component manufacturing. So with the rise of data centers, as well as high energy manufacturing, this industry is set to excel like we have not seen in the past from any other industry. These are the companies, again, that exist here today, and we are feeling very bullish about getting more of these investment and becoming a hub for this type of industry in Milwaukee. So these are the 6 categories that we plan on focusing on in the coming 5 years and targeting with marketing efforts as well as relationship building. And really Milwaukee 7 in the Milwaukee region is becoming known as the home of intelligent manufacturing, where our legacy in hardware craftsmanship and cutting edge software innovation is really coming together to develop the products and processes of tomorrow. So, and we're off to a great start. I'm happy to announce as a new leader of the organization. Some of you might recognize this company, Nexus Pharmaceuticals. They were down in Kenosha County. Milwaukee 7, along with our partners at the state and local level, recruited Nexus here in 2018 to manufacture injectable drugs. This was one of the first companies, this was before COVID, to bring that onshore, that type of manufacturing, and we were thrilled to have them. They're headquartered in Illinois, they were looking at Texas and other communities, and we were able to land them right in Kenosha. Well, the acorn of Nexus really led to the oak tree of Eli Lilly. So a few months ago, Lilly had announced that they were purchasing the Nexus facility and will be making the largest investment outside of the state of Indiana in company history, and employing 750 highly skilled jobs and $3 billion of investment. A great win in that biotech manufacturing sector, and another flag in that industry moving forward. So before I conclude and open it up to questions, I just want to bring us back home a little bit. So this email found its way into my inbox a few months ago, and it just reminded me, you know, these are big numbers, this is a lot of statistics, but why we do the work that we do. Thank you for attracting Form Labs. My son has a final interview here today. Maybe I'll keep one of my kids in the region. Our work is really to create opportunity and allow people to prosper. your son, your daughter, your uncle, your aunt, your neighbor, your friend. By creating more opportunities, we allow these people to find what they need to prosper and also attract new people to our region. And so that is really at the heart of what we do and what drives me moving forward. So thank you so much. I would love some questions and questions.
Rebecca, thank you so much for speaking to the Rotary Club. We now will open the floor to questions. If you have a question, please start out with an introduction, your name.
Hi, thanks for being here. My name's Kyle. I was just curious about, you talk about the focus on manufacturing that's based on really good research. What does your research say, because a lot of manufacturers are going to robotics and automation. So is that going to affect the numbers, and how do you see that playing out when you talk about increasing employment?
Yeah. No, thank you so much for the question, Kyle. I appreciate it. So yeah, it certainly is going to affect the numbers. Going back to that slide of, manufacturing is becoming more productive with robotics and AI and Internet of Things and everything that have been buzzwords for the last few years. And so that's changing. It is requiring less and less workers. But, it's also just changing the types of jobs we need. And you saw from those top occupations, it's people who are working CNC machines, as well as monitoring those pieces of equipment. And so it's really changing the idea of what we think is manufacturing labor. And, we have a great technical college system and a great school system. Calling out MSOE over there, I had a conversation with him earlier. And so it's just about adjusting to that and making sure our population has a skill set to meet those challenges and that change moving forward. But also, we have a lower unemployment. It's no secret. You saw the population numbers. It's also a general global phenomenon that population is shrinking. And so, maybe the robotics and that change isn't so bad. And it's about then bringing our talent along to make sure that they're prepared to take those jobs.
Thank you for being here. I'm Teresa Regan, and I'm curious if you could just speak briefly to your process of targeting companies to come to the region.
Yeah, no, great question. Happy to talk about the process. So, I always use like a dog analogy, dog pulling on a pant leg, because really we don't stop with a project until they tell us no, or if they've signed some sort of contract in a different region. But how we get there is really identifying the industry clusters, as you saw, and then targeting certain places where they're being. So example, conferences where biotech is being showcased and they're interacting, making sure that Milwaukee and Wisconsin is there, but also building relationships. So we get word on the street, like, you all can please contact me if you know someone who is like, we're thinking about Milwaukee, but I don't know quite what to do or who to contact. That happens often to us, that we get called in to a company to start talking to them about the benefits of doing business here. And then lastly, there is a consultant group out there, they're called site consultants, and this is what they do for a living. They get hired by companies to build a giant analysis of where they should invest next. Generac used them, and some other companies that we've worked around with recently. And it's really building a relationship with them to make sure that we stay at the top of that funnel, because they are the influencers of those companies. And sometimes our data, you saw our data, doesn't tell our full story. So by building those relationships, I have a member of my team here today, Jane, and focusing on those relationships moving forward, we can stay in that funnel longer and therefore have access to, play in the field with the rest of our competitors.
John Franke, thank you for being here. At the beginning of your talk, you mentioned 139 projects. Could you give an example or two of a project and explain what it means to be a Milwaukee 7 project and the process that goes into deciding what projects you're going to pursue?
Yeah, no, great question. And I have gotten that question before, so I might have to redefine when I talk about projects. So a project is when a company is looking at an expansion. I'll start there. So for example, Milwaukee Tool has had tremendous growth in our area. When I started with the M7, I think they had just over 1,000 folks working for them. They're well over 2,000 now. I think they're actually over 2,500 there. So, they've had 4 4 different projects within our region since I joined the team. So again, different times of expansion and different reasons for those expansions. So that's what's defined as a project. And then of course, out of state or out of region investment or new investors into area. So I had mentioned Form Labs, 3D printing company that's growing tremendously around the world. They would be an example of that young company that we want more of just because they're on the rise and growing exponentially. They were looking for a Midwest headquarters. So we competed pretty hard against Indianapolis in Michigan for that project. And so that was an example of an attraction project that chose Milwaukee and where we had real influence. So we don't count the projects that we don't have influence in or just naturally have come here, but we count the ones that can say, hey, M7 made a big difference in our decision.
My name is Barbara. Congratulations, Rebecca. You represent the region very, very well. You're extremely articulate, and I've enjoyed listening to you. I'm wondering if you have a fundamental reason or reasons why Milwaukee ranks low in salaries.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about the per capita income slide? Yes. Okay. That is something we continue to explore. There's a lot of factors that can call into that. Population growth is certainly one of them, and education attainment. So we're coming out with a much larger SWOT analysis. This was just kind of a tasting of that with our parent organization, MMAC, that explores more of that later this year. So keep an eye out for that. But there is a lot of factors that play into that. And again, we've only touched on a few. More research will have to be done on a direct correlation, but the population growth and education attainment definitely plays a factor in those numbers.
Thanks for a great presentation. Do you see any evidence yet that the tariffs that have been increased or are likely to be increased will in fact result in more manufacturing either being done here or returning to Milwaukee from offshore?
Yeah, so great question. It's actually the second time I've gotten that question today. And so, during the first administration tariffs, we did see an increase in business and growth in the area during the first administration, but we also saw that increase, with a different method of, awarding companies and doing all the investment during the Biden administration. So, once everything is, leveled out with these tariffs, we anticipate to see some more growth. I would say the uncertainty of what that looks like is really what's halting a lot of decisions right now. There's been projects that have been really close to the finish line and making a decision that are not on hold just to determine, what's going to happen. If there is going to be higher tariffs, they will grow their footprint and what they want to do in the United States. But, again, the uncertainty is causing some pause in investment just to figure out what's going on and what should the play be for the next coming years based on what tariffs are going to fall out to be. Thank you.
Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for being here. Alex Zamora, piggybacking off of John's question real quick on, the projects. Do you guys, does M7 do anything on the retention side of things? I think about a company like Milwaukee Forge in Bayview, up for receivership again. We have all the infrastructure there, and being able to maintain companies like that here, people employed. Is that something you can speak to?
Yeah, so when we talk about expansion, we also want to include retention in there. We certainly do not want to see any companies leave this region or go out of business by any reason. That's a big loss for us as a whole. And so we do rally our resources around companies like the one you had mentioned to ensure that they have all access to everything that a new company or an expanding company does for them to be successful, because that is definitely against our mission, that if they were to shut their doors or even relocate to another community, that would be a tremendous loss. So we do focus in that area. If someone were to come to us and explain that and talk about a company that is looking for retention help, we certainly open our resources and our doors to that conversation.
Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for your excellent presentation. I'm Elizabeth Draper. I was curious if you were going to mention our local status of being a sort of freshwater hub, and I'm curious how much are our water resources an asset when you're pitching to companies or trying to attract them here?
A huge asset. You know, the Global Water Hub is an amazing partner to us. The water industry honestly cuts across all of those industry. A food and beverage manufacturer water is essential for their decision whether they use it in their process or not. And so that plays a big factor. Being next to Lake Michigan, having the freshwater resources is usually one of the reasons that we are able to attract a lot of manufacturing companies. So yes, 100% that resource and that capability and our partnership with the Global Water Center is impactful for projects moving forward.
Hi, nice presentation. Tom Gale, yeah, I've always been surprised that we haven't attracted insurance companies here. We have major insurance employers here, so we have the ability of workers that they'd be looking for with UWM, MATC, Marquette. We could train any kind of skill they want, actuarial or otherwise. Des Moines is kind of the headquarters for insurance right now, and I spent a week one night in Des Moines, and Milwaukee has a lot more to offer, from sports, entertainment, the lake. Have we gone after any insurance companies?
Yeah, actually we have, and some from outer state, Wisconsin, have approached us, though we never try and poach from our Wisconsin friends. We mostly look at globally and nationally. But I just want to call the attention to the corporate and professional services. So even though insurance is not specifically called out as a category here, it certainly falls into that space, along with financial services and engineering firms. We really rank well within those categories. And so even though it's not called out as an industry, because we don't want 12. 12 is a lot to handle when we are looking at everything, but they fit into those categories. And I agree with you. We do have a strong concentration there. So when we're talking and promoting and going out, we certainly list those as assets and companies that other insurance companies want to join and cluster here.
Thank you.
Rebecca, good to see you. Josh Rolling. You talked a little bit about education and rates of bachelor's degrees, which I know we just had a speaker talking about how they're trying to improve those. So, there's some elements for the site selection that are movable. Others, like our weather, not so much. Could you talk a little bit about, how you make the pitch on some of those factors that, we don't have the weather of a Tennessee or something that manufacturers might like, but I know there's kind of pros and cons for our environment here.
Yeah, great question. And we actually have navigated that pretty successfully, and it's becoming a larger topic. So I appreciate the softball question, Josh. I know it's not meant to be that way, but our weather, though chilly, we are mostly in, I don't have the map here because that's also an interesting map. So if y'all stop in M7 anytime, I'd be happy to share that with you. But we have a lack of natural disasters in this region. We are essentially shielded from any natural disasters. Maybe every once in a while a tornado warning or tornado touches down in the western part of our state, but we don't have hurricanes, we don't have wildfires, we don't have potential of a drought. So we're really shielded from all of that, and that is taken very seriously into companies' decisions in recent years. It used to get, the map I show used to get a lot of chuckles, like where's the locust, what's happening here. But that is, as these are natural disasters on the rise, it's becoming a huge factor in these companies' decision makings, because a natural disaster can affect a company for years. So I always get off, like, what about the snow? What do you do with like big snowstorms? We have the infrastructure to take care of that. So we plow it, we put sand or salt down, and we call that a Tuesday, which always gets a chuckle. So I'm glad that also got a chuckle here. But really, that's the benefit of our weather and our position along Lake Michigan in the Midwest.
Thanks again for the background, Chuck Radel. Curious, with putting the packages together, how do you work the incentives, the tax incentives and things like that you have to put out there to attract some of the companies? And when you're looking at it, do you know what you're up against, or do you come up with your own to try and incent somebody to come here?
Yeah, so that's where the partnership really comes into play and is really beneficial. So Milwaukee 7 doesn't ourselves have an incentive program, but there's incentive programs across the state and our municipalities and county partners. So, once we have an idea of where that company is interested within the region, and maybe it's across the region, it's working with our partners to put together various packages at an incentive level. And so it's on myself and my team to really understand the intricacies of the tax environment. Our manufacturing and ag tax credit, for example, is a huge player on the stage of basically eliminating a company's tax burden from a manufacturing and agricultural standpoint to the state, but understanding that really well and being well educated, as well as those partnerships to understand, county incentives and city incentives, and working together because of our relationships to put a package forward to compete for a company. I would say, we have a pretty good understanding of the competitors that we look at. I understand Indianapolis's programs in that region. Ohio, has a great alcohol tax that they leverage quite a bit, which I find fascinating. But, understanding our competitors is just as important as understanding ourselves. So then when a company comes to us and said, hey, we're looking at Indianapolis, Kansas City, Milwaukee, and Columbus, Ohio, we know what we're up against and how we can leverage certain benefits and incentive packages to compete effectively against those communities.
Terrific. I think that's it. Thank so much, Rebecca.
Thank you.